Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is Friday, September 21st, 2018, and tonight we're going to be talking about political bombshells and turmoils and their failure to dent the markets or move the gold and silver markets. But let's take a look at those gold and silver markets. Gold having a down day, opened around 1208. Closed at 1198. Had fallen down as low as, they called it a flash crash. I don't know if it was really that. But it did fall from like 1202 to 1192. So it's a bit of a crash, but $10. And currently at 1198. Silver actually did slightly better. Still closing with a loss, but only a 0.38% loss compared to gold's 0.67 loss. I don't think that's how the silver bugs want the gold-silver ratio to come down by just not losing as much as gold loses on the way down. But it did pick up a bit. The gold-silver ratio did decrease slightly today because silver didn't perform as poorly as gold performed today. Silver closed at 1425 and it had opened around 1436, 1437. It also flash crash from about 1437 all the way down to about 1416, and like gold it did rebound, but gold was down earlier in the day. Silver was holding its own, but that didn't happen. Now the other markets, interestingly enough, we're going to get into some of a huge turmoil today. I got 3 or 4 big stories, and Dow Jones up 86 points. It's up 0.32%, S&P essentially flat, and NASDAQ down just a half a percentage point. Dow Jones all-time high, $26,743. NASDAQ, $743. NASDAQ, $79.86, and S&P, $29.29. The cryptos went vertical today. Bitcoin at one point over 6,800, up about 4.5% today. It's currently at 6,782 on Coinbase. Bitcoin Cash rose to over 500. It's currently at 499. That's a 10% 24-hour gain. Ethereum went over 250, currently at 248. That's an 11 or 12% gain. Now, Ethereum just a few days ago was like at 191 and is now at 250. Litecoin went over $61. Now it's 60.76. That's also up about 7%. Moving that, I believe, is word that there's another Bitcoin ETF up in front of the Securities Exchange Commission. This one is Van Eck, which is a pretty big one. ProShares got rejected. Winklevoss Twins got rejected. People are saying it's only a matter of time till one of them gets finally approved. And the sticking point is basically they're concerned about manipulation, and I've heard so many great sarcastic remarks on this channel and elsewhere. It's like there's manipulation in all markets. That shouldn't be a reason to hold up a Bitcoin ETF. But I think really the issue is the lack of surveillance agreements where the SEC could at least say we're looking at manipulation, because they don't have those agreements. There's also thin trading, really, and it's worldwide. Now, one of the reasons they turned down the first Bitcoin ETF a few years back was because like 80% of the trading was taking place in China. That's changed. A lot of the trading, because China doesn't have the trading anymore, a lot of trading in the US. And my opinion is that once they have this New York Stock Exchange, Microsoft, Starbucks thing up and running at the end of the year, that'll give them, they're going to have a trading platform, they're going to have security, storage, or once Coinbase or Poloniex gets registered with the SEC as an alternative trading platform, I think then the SEC will feel they have the appropriate ability to check out what's going on those platforms, and then they'll approve the ETF. People think that's going to be a big deal. Probably is, because institutional money will flow in. What's interesting is there's already so much money going into this space because of ETF, ICO investment, a lot of venture capital investment in so many different projects. And one of the things that, the way I look at this is, I know there's a lot of naysayers out there about Bitcoin and Litecoin. They don't like the cryptocurrencies. The only problem with that is one of the things I learned They always used to tell you, okay, what would you do in a circumstance? What would you do if you were in his situation? And that's not really the best way of looking at it. What a lot of people do is they take their own analysis and then they apply it to markets. And I hear a lot of commentators saying, once the market figures out that I'm right, this will happen. Well, the market may never, ever figure out that you're right. You're not smarter than the market. You may not understand the markets. I've had this many occasions. One time I was in a pool on where an IPO might open on the price. I guessed the price right, and all the other people, all lawyers and bankers, were telling me, well, the market obviously didn't take into account at all their brilliant reasons why the price should be X, Y, or Z. And I said, yeah, I knew they wouldn't. And they just don't understand that. So my point is, what a lot of people do is they apply their intelligence, their point of view to markets. And they decide cryptocurrencies are a waste of time, they're useless, that's their opinion. And it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter that you think of sound money, because there's enough of a market out there that doesn't care about what you think. And I don't like them either. I've never liked the cryptocurrencies. But I learned long ago what I think doesn't matter. So it's not a situation where you say, well, let me just put myself in that position. No, you have to put yourself in the other person's position, and then you have to think like the other person. Then what would they do? And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people who don't think like me. They don't think like maybe you guys think about sound money and so on. There's a lot of people who believe in this stuff and are throwing money at it. And you can't change that. And you can't insist that they're wrong and it's going to zero. It may, but that's not the point. You don't know. You're projecting your own intelligence, your own analysis on how you think the world should be or how you think market should be. None of us would probably have ever thought the stock market should have gone where it went the last 4 years. It's gone up. Well, you can say, well, that's because the central banks are putting money into it. Okay, for whatever the reason is, that's happening. Or none of us could have said 7, 8 years ago, silver would be $14. Well, that's because of manipulation. Okay, but a lot of people know that. And being smart enough to see things and then think, well, they shouldn't be that way, doesn't mean that they're not going to be that way. Anyway, sorry for the small rant there, but I hear a lot of people, they just insist that this crypto thing is going to go away. And I don't see it from the regulatory standpoint. I don't see it from the money flows. Sure, there's people against it. There's people against everything. That doesn't stop certain things from happening. All right, let's move on from that and talk about this turmoil today. So the day started out with Brexit plan getting ditched, the EU saying, no, sorry, and then Theresa May saying, oh no, I don't know, don't humiliate me. And so that put everything into a bit of a turmoil. Now, it's not U.S. turmoil, but it does mean that there's some uncertainty over there in EU land. Then, during the day, we've had this back and forth over the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. And just in the last half hour, Grassley has said that if he doesn't hear back from the accuser, I don't remember her name was, Claire Basley Ford or whatever, Chrissy, I think, that they're going to have the vote on Monday. Now, I don't know if he's heard back from her or not, but she placed a very stringent type of demands on the Senate committee, which really an accuser doesn't get to pick how things are supposed to work. So, for example, one of them was she wanted Kavanaugh to testify first. Now, if he's not really sure of what the accusations are because no one's seen the letter, what's he going to testify to? So it's almost like a ploy to get him to say something. I don't know. It's just not how things are done. I mean, forget the timing and the politics in it. The demands themselves don't make sense. She's basically saying, I don't have to show or prove anything. I just need to, I don't know, show up and be heard. So that's a big turmoil thing because there are a lot of people very upset on both sides about this. On the right, you've got the whole, this is last minute, this is politics. On the left, you got, this is Me Too, and you know, you guys don't want you don't want to investigate this because, any event, it becomes a big political circus, and it does create turmoil. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, the other day, Trump said that he had, well, he didn't say, he issued an order that he was going to declassify a lot of documents relating to the Russian investigation, which would include the final FISA warrant, which Rod Rosenstein, his deputy attorney general, signed. Some of the 302s involved in the investigation, including Bruce Orrs, and the emails and text messages of Comey, Page, Strzok, a whole cast of characters. And people started thinking, well, that's going to be a very embarrassing thing. And Trump actually said something like, heads are going to roll when this comes out. It's a big deal. And then we started hearing talk about how, well, maybe the FBI and DOJ are going to slow roll this or not do it at all. Then you had former CIA Director Brennan come out and say, this is politics, he shouldn't do it. Oh, clearly there's stuff in there, as we've seen, as they've leaked out the Strzok memos, emails, Page over time. There's stuff in there that ranges from embarrassing to seemingly criminal, and clearly there's probably a lot more in these documents. So Trump goes ahead, issues an executive order, which in and of itself has the ability just to create turmoil. Well, it gets worse. He then says today, earlier in the day, or actually said last night on TV, that there were some issues with the foreign countries. We're worried about what's in those, and that there were some other concerns. So he tweets out this morning, I met with the DOJ concerning the declassification of various unredacted documents. They agreed to release them, but stated that doing so may have a perceived negative impact on the Russia probe, as if he hadn't already thought of that. Also, key allies, he didn't say who, called to ask not to release. Therefore, the Inspector General has been asked to review these documents on an expedited basis. I believe he will move quickly on this, and hopefully other things which he's looking at, which I think he's pointing to the Inspector General's own investigation, on which he's supposed to release a report on how the Russian investigation was handled. In the end, I can always declassify if proves necessary, meaning I'm not planning on declassifying. Speed is very important to me and everyone. All right, so now you have a situation where he seems to have backpedaled, but then again, that some people could say that that is caving, backpedaling, or others could say that what he's doing is still holding this over the Mueller investigation's head, meaning that this better not come down on me because I've already shown that I've issued an executive order that's just sitting there waiting to have the trigger pulled on. Well, you might have gotten a reason today. Another big news story comes out today. Where else does this come from? New York Times. That Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, according to sources, says that he was going around early in 2017 when he was first appointed, saying to other FBI and DOJ officials that he was going to wear wire. And the reason he was going to wear wire was that he wanted to catch the president out on that basically he was crazy, and if he had these tapes from wearing the wire, they could then execute on the 25th Amendment and remove him from being mentally unfit. Rosenstein immediately denied it. The New York Times had mentioned that a lot of this information came from memos that McCabe had written, saying that Rosenstein had said this. Well, where would those McCabe memos be? Part of the declassified documents that the president is looking to declassify. So it gets leaked out by the New York Times in advance. Trump, kind of set people up for it, but rather than allowing Trump to declassify it and say, look how bad this is, comes out of the New York Times, and now it looks like, oh, what are we going to do with Rod Rosenstein? He's supposedly working for the Trump administration. Maybe he's the guy who wrote that New York Times op-ed about the resistance with Inside. So now you have people saying we should fire Rosenstein, which could also then lead to more turmoil because it can then look like it's obstruction of justice, and it's exactly what they want to say. Now you've got all this high emotion going on both sides, not just on the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, but now you've got McCabe, declassification, Rosenstein, and then yesterday Trump was going off on Jeff Sessions saying I don't have an attorney general, he's next to useless or something to that effect. So you really have the makings here for a very tumultuous, not even just the potential, It already is tumultuous. It already is a very untenable situation. You got 46 days until the midterm elections. You're going to have this Kavanaugh thing. Who knows? Maybe Trump wants to declassify, but he wants to see how things play out before he actually allows the stuff to go to the public. Either way, if he doesn't declassify the documents, see them, then there could be anger on one side. If he does put them out, there's probably bombshell things in there. And you know, the term bombshell is overused because generally a bombshell comes and obliterates something, but all these bombshells, they just seem to negate each other. And that's the fascinating thing. So we've seen all of these bombshells, and the markets are shrugging it off as if it's just business as usual and nothing's going to change. And maybe the markets are right. This is just a tempest in a teapot. Someone gets excited. Someone gets mad over this. Someone gets mad over that. Someone's offended. Someone's not offended. And the markets just say, so what? Now, one other thing that was pretty big news today was Alex Jones got kicked off of PayPal. Now, this is something I've been talking about for years, is how one of the problems with the cashless society is you can get booted off the platform. Now, we saw, it looked like first they booted him off the social media platforms. And I think I did a podcast on this a couple of weeks ago. I was saying that's not the end of the world. Okay, so you can't do memes and you can't complain. Yes, you're disenfranchised politically or just socially when you're not allowed to be on these platforms, but you can still live. But when they start deplatforming your bank account or your PayPal account, that's a little harder. And that's actually a use case for Bitcoin or Litecoin because, as I've mentioned many times, and again, I don't like Bitcoin and Litecoin. If there was a system in which you could use your money and it was free, then there wouldn't be a problem. But the idea that somehow your one comment or one something, it's like the Chinese social credit score, from getting booted from your bank account or booted from your PayPal account, your ability to earn a living, that's where the Bitcoin, Litecoin, whatever other cryptocurrencies come in, because they can't do that. And at least you have some way of trying to earn your living and getting paid in something. And again, while gold and silver are wonderful, sound money in your hand, you got it. If you want to buy something, you can't. There's not. You can only barter with it in your local community if indeed they're going to take it. Whereas at least Bitcoin, if you have it, you could go to a merchant, and that merchant may have a payment processor that he or she uses, and you can use your Bitcoin there, and they're not going to know that it's you that's buying it, so they can't boot you off the system, and you can continue to conduct transactions. I actually think that booting people off of PayPal, that's very dangerous, because whatever you think of Alex Jones, it's booting him off of PayPal is a very dramatic type of move to make. It truly is trying to shut him down, and it seems to be that you have all these tech companies trying to do that. All right, well, let's see what you guys are saying in the comments, because I have not been looking at them. All right. Carl Joseph DeMarco, he hopped on early. I had to tell him to wait in a half an hour. And I said while you were waiting to order your mugs, your Smaulgld mugs. And also I said while you were waiting, there's a 46-minute interview with myself and James Anderson of SD Bullion. The link is right at the top of the chat. You can check it out, and it's a 46-minute interview. All is One says they already have a mug. Roaring Fork says he broke down and he got a mug. All right. Roaring Fork just finished the SD interview. Not sure who is interviewing whom, but it was fun listening to you guys nerd out over this stuff. Purely talked about gold, silver. I raised platinum. I raised palladium and copper. So some interesting tidbits in that interview. Shark Air, did I miss it at 8 o'clock somewhere? Nope. You're on. AG Monsters, mass intervention that's keeping AGAU from running like a scalded central banker. Yes, it is. Yes, it seems to be. Good evening, everyone. Tom Manley has shown up. Sentence first, verdict after, says Roaring Fork. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be, I mean, the society in which we have is one of laws and culture, right? So you break that down. Culture is always changing. There are things that were acceptable 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago that aren't acceptable today. Okay. But the law is always the same. So if something is not acceptable or something is illegal, and it's always illegal, then you always treat it the same way. You don't change the law for the culture, and you change how you're going to apply an investigation. So I'm going to just put aside any of this stuff about politics and delay and Kavanaugh. If somebody wants to bring forth charges, they don't dictate the terms of how they bring them forth. They have to bring them forth in the same way. Now, I understand why they're trying to dictate the terms, because they don't think that they're going to get a proper hearing. However, if they thought that they weren't going to get a proper hearing due to time, then they should have raised the issue in July when they would have gotten a full hearing. So it seems like they're trying to have the cake and eat it too. Because if you're going to raise the objections, you're going to raise a serious charge, then it has to go through how you normally handle charges. Not let him go first, and I'm only going to come if, I don't know. It just seems very odd, and I don't think you can allow that type of demand to be made from somebody who's the accuser, not because she doesn't deserve to be heard, but because no one can dictate how they're going to demand how someone might be prosecuted ever. Doesn't matter whether there's no time limit, there is a time limit, what the charge is, what it isn't. Let's just know how the legal system works, or even, I guess, the Senate works. They have to determine the rules of how they interview and look at things. So now here's the other thing I just thought of, is if the real issue here is getting a fair hearing on Kavanaugh, well, if she has a real case, she can bring it up with the FBI. From what I understand, there's not a statute of limitations on this. So if he gets appointed and the FBI turns out that he's done whatever she's accused him of, they can remove him from the bench. I mean, you can't have somebody on there who's a convicted whatever. So I don't know. It just seems that they're trying to change how the law works, or at least how the procedure works. Very strange. Trump versus Dems. It's to the point where someone needs to file a divorce. Roaring Fork. I honestly think the only thing holding this country together is the amount of debt we all share. Yeah. Tom Manley. We've bent over for a long time. I'd say the divorce from the Fed is past due. Tell it to the sheeple. I think Hillary is A-OK. They still think Hillary is A-OK. There was a poll today that the Hill put out, and it said, quote, new poll, if the election was held today, Hillary would win in a landslide. Roaring Fork. Okay, that's held for review. Roaring Fork says they both have their minions. He's talking about Trump and the Democrats, who can only see their virtues and none of their faults. Well, that's clearly the case. See, in the case that I just mentioned with the Ford Kavanaugh thing, you can't. If you try to look at it rationally, you're going to take heat from one side or the other. Everything I said has nothing to do with whether I'm for Kavanaugh or against Kavanaugh, or for Ford or against Ford. I think the conclusion you can draw from me trying to be rational is that Ford can't dictate the terms. How dare you? You know, she's entitled. No, she's not. No one is entitled to bring up to determine how their complaint. You can't go into the police department and say, I want to file a complaint. And it's okay. And they start, yeah, but before I file my complaint, let me tell you what I want. It doesn't work that way. So anyway, you're making a very good point, is that you're either on the Trump side or you're on the Hillary side. You're on the Kavanaugh side or you're on the Ford side. There's no middle ground. There's no, what's the rational side to be on? What's the rational way of looking at this? That's the real problem. And that's what's interesting, is that none of this is leading to market turmoil. And I think it's because people have just accepted the fact that no one's listening to each other. That you have people on the left spouting their stuff, and you got the people on the right spouting their stuff, and they don't want to hear it. And on the left, they'll just call you names, and on the right, they'll just ignore you. And maybe that's that's stable. It's like, okay, that's just the way it is, and the markets are shrugging it off. Jeffrey, great. This is great. Trump has a plan, according to Q. No, according to me. If Trump's plan is to be dealing with Speaker Pelosi, he's doing an awesome job. I know as Trump is very intelligent. Well, it's interesting that I don't know if Trump is very intelligent. I think he knows a lot more, which comes off as intelligence, meaning when he makes his big statements, I think he already knows, and then it turns out he's a genius because he's proven to be right. Like when he said they wiretapped Trump Tower. He knew that. It wasn't like he guessed it. He knew that. And I think when you have the game plan, I'm sure he's seen a lot of the classified documents, so he knows exactly where he stands, and he can figure out, again, as I was saying at the beginning, if I were they, and I knew that he knew what I know, how would they act knowing what their position is and knowing how they think? And I think that's how he realizes that he can stay one step ahead of them. Because they know that he has a lot of information. They also know that maybe there's certain information that they think he has and they're not sure he has. And he knows that too, that's going to make them nervous. And then he knows what their end goal is to try to like exonerate themselves. But before they do that, I think what's happening is they're still trying to take him out without, I don't think their primary goal yet is to exonerate themselves. I think they're still figuring the best defense is a good offense. All right. Good evening, everyone. Nomadic Giant is here. I got messages retracted left and right. All right. Shark Air, if the election was held today, Hillary would be found underneath a landslide posture right next to Vince Foster. All right. Well, anyway, I just think it's a fascinating time where there's no middle ground. There's basically your job is to either, whatever side you're on, is just to trash the other side. You can't even, look what happened to that what's his name? Dershowitz comes out and he says, yeah, I don't think we should impeach Trump. Because basically he's saying that there's other things you can do, and they don't want to hear it. All they want to hear him say is that Trump is a big orange baboon and he needs to go, impeach 45. And they want him to chant slogans because he's liberal. And, his whole life he hasn't been a slogan chanter. He's been a left-wing attorney for the ACLU. He believes in civil liberties. He's card-carrying. He voted for Hillary Clinton. And they can't accept the fact that he's not out there saying, how could you not possibly want to, strangle Donald Trump? And that's where we are. You just see no ability or interest in the meeting of the mind. You see there's our side, that side, and there's no what the right side is. And but maybe I've answered my own question. Maybe that's why the markets are shrugging it off, because maybe things are in an equilibrium. All right, let's see if we get any other questions. If not, we'll sign up. There we go. Tom Manley polls. Hillary's chance of winning 98%, Trump's 2%. Yeah, I don't even know why they would do a poll like that. I think she's actually a spent force. I don't think she could even campaign with half the vigor, which was very little in the last campaign. And no, the sitting president has to be challenged by somebody much more formidable than Hillary Clinton. And it has to be probably someone younger, more dynamic, and someone who's not a caricature. So we'll see how that goes. Hospitality business is tough to achieve. Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying that Trump is dumb. And I actually think he has good political instincts. That's for sure. And he appeals to a lot of people. He also turns off a lot of people. And that's a culture thing. I think 50 years ago, Trump would have been more popular just because you had a different culture. His is more of a throwback, less politically correct. I mean, today you've had a couple of generations of people who grew up in politically correct environments, and they don't take kindly to the way he talks. But 50 years ago, that's how a lot of people talked. Roaring Fork, some people are only happy when they're miserable, like the American people. I don't know about that. I think Americans are relatively optimistic. They're not they do these surveys on happiness. And America comes out pretty well. Chicago must be a big blank party the way they shoot each other on weekends. You know, no one has figured that one out. No one solved that problem. I mean, Trump said that he was going to bring the National Guard in there, but that hasn't happened. Alan Wheeler, I'm heading out tonight. All right. Last time I think you were out when we had you on the Smaulgld channel. We're in a paradigm shift for PMs. Yes, there's a paradigm shift. We're all going to become oligarchs because we have a roll of silver eagles. We're going to buy city blocks with them. But we will be kind and benevolent oligarchs. And occasionally we may throw a silver dime at some of our best friends just to remind them that silver is the king. He's old school. Yes, I was. Prediction. Donald Trump will be the last WASP male for at least the next POTUS. Well, it's looking that way. That's for sure. American Supertramp Camacho for president. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Please go over to BitChute and sign up there. And to Minds.com, Steemit, Gab.ai, Twitter, Facebook, what else? Google Plus. Those were, and the most important place to go to is the place where you can get your Smaulgld mug, which is at Smaulgld.com. That's the best place to go buy your mug at Smaulgld.com. Also, if you're feeling generous on a Friday night, you can go over to the Smaulgld store and check out the Smaulgld products, and you can consider becoming a... I do love our patrons, the Smaulgld patrons. Each and every month, they throw me some money, which is nice. Helps to pay for the GoDaddy hosting plan that I have. And that is, I'll give you that here too. That's the patron link. And also, we do have PayPal and Bitcoin donations, so please consider, if you're so inclined, the donation there. I'm going to send you that. All right, thumbs up. Bingo star. There they all are. The Bitcoin, you can see cut and paste. The Litecoin, you can cut and paste. And that's about it. I really appreciate everybody joining in, commenting, and especially the people who come, and newcomers too, but we get a good crowd here almost every night. So thank you very much. Guten Tag? No. Guten Abend is good evening. Gute Nacht is good night. And Buonanotte is Italian for good night. And I think that's it for my language abilities. Good night.